everybody, welcome back to U.S. history. So today we're starting our unit on World War II. So go ahead and get your notes out and let's get started. So, really when we talk about World War II, we're starting with a rise of dictators in Europe. It's really getting the things going. So totalitarian leaders took over and they instituted a one-party system in which the government had total control over the state, with people having few or no civil rights. So our famous people we need to talk about are Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union, Benito Mussolini of Italy, and of course, Adolf Hitler of Germany. So let's start with Stalin. Now, he transformed the Soviet Union into a communist state and took control of farming and industry, and eliminated all private property. Now, Stalin was a very paranoid individual, and he killed over 40 million people or let them starve because he was scared of them. At one point during World War II, kind of foreshadowing a little bit ahead, his son got captured by German forces, and they let him kill him because he was afraid his son would come back and spy on him. Now, by 1937, the Soviet Union had become an industrial superpower as a response. But before we move on to Mussolini, actually, and this is a little bit of a fun fact for you, you may be curious to know that, well, Joseph Stalin, when he was younger, could have been your man crush Monday. Yes, that's right, folks. Young Joseph Stalin was attractive. At least by the monarcher back then. So let's talk about Mussolini. So again, him being in Italy, Italy experienced a lot of problems after World War I, and people lost faith in democracy. Mussolini and his party took advantage. He formed the Fascist Party of Italy, and they marched on Rome and forced the king to make Mussolini the leader. Under his leadership, democracy was completely abolished, and all other political parties were outlawed. He also took control of the media to make sure that they were seen in the best possible light. So, a little bit of a recap. The Treaty of Versailles that ended World War I, that Germany was forced to accept. Remember, this is pre-World War I, this is after. It greatly altered the geography of Europe, and Germany lost a lot of territory. Now, the German economy was also crushed by being forced to pay $33 billion in reparations, and Germany was forced to disarm. All of those issues really began to get people's blood boiling to the point that they would make it easier for them to rise up again. Now, conditions in Germany. For reference, this picture, they are building a tower out of blocks of money. Economic hardship was a huge thing, and then throw the Great Depression on it, in the U.S., it further tanked the German economy. 6 million were unemployed, or roughly 30% of the population. Violence and chaos in the streets. German people were desperate for relief. And they felt like the Weimar Republic, the democratic government established after World War I, had stabbed them in the back, and they were extremely unhappy with the government. So this made it so the Nazi Party could come to power. So the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazis, formed in 1919, right after the war ended. Hitler joined the Unpopular Party in 1919, and by 1921, he became a powerful speaker and leader, or the Führer, in 1921. And they ran on a platform of undoing the Treaty of Versailles, uniting all German-speaking people, and expanding into new territory, and purifying Germany of the inferior. So jump ahead to 1932. He ran a successful campaign and gained millions of votes, and he was actually elected into office through propaganda, speeches, Nazi rallies, and lost the election but gained tons of support. As a result, the Nazi Party took control in the legislature, and he was appointed chancellor. He became dictator of Germany 57 days later, so less than 2 months, And he established the Third Reich, or a 1,000-year Reich, which was Hitler's great vision of extreme German nationalism, racial purification of just the Aryan race, utilizing colonization to provide living space for German people, Germanization or the transmission of German culture to outsiders. There was a plan to settle 100 million people in the Soviet Union, and the Nazis built the Autobahn, the 1,000-mile-long highway system in Germany. So it's really here we start to talk about their big things that they did to get us to war. The first one was the remilitarization of the Rhineland. Now, this is a region of Western Germany along the Rhine River. It was declared a demilitarized zone by the Treaty of Versailles, like you weren't allowed to have any troops, fortifications, nothing in there. Hitler ordered its invasion in 1936 and gained a valuable military advantage, the French border. And the French did not react. They were convinced Hitler they weren't willing to fight for Austria, which was Hitler's next target. So, the annexation of Austria. So, Hitler was a native Austrian by birth and always yearned to reunite Austria with Germany. He gave the Austrian chancellor an ultimatum. If they didn't agree to it, Germany would invade. Austria reluctantly agreed, and German troops marched into Austria. By 1938, Hitler introduced Austria as a German province. As a result, they gained 7 million people, 7 army divisions, natural resources to support a military in the form of iron, timber, and a variety of other items. By now, people in Europe were starting to get a little worried, but not enough to fully go to war yet. Now, the next big thing we need to talk about is the acquisition of the Sudetenland. This is a strip of western Czechoslovakia that borders Germany. Now, due to the redrawing of boundaries following World War I, about 3 million Germans were now part of Czechoslovakia. Hitler actually accused the Czechs of mistreating Germans to create unrest among the Germans, and Hitler stationed troops at the border and prepared for an invasion. Now, if you look at this map, everything in brown is territory annexed by the Germans, usually referred to as the Sudetenland, so mostly an encroachment on the western border of Czechoslovakia. War appeared to be inevitable at this point. However, the Europeans anyway, tried to stop him by hosting the Munich Conference with the British Prime Minister and the French Premier. Now, previously, France and Great Britain promised to protect the Czechs. Hitler told them this was his last territorial demand, and the Allies were eager to avoid war and believed him. Upon return to England, Neville Chamberlain said, "My friends, there has come back from Germany peace with honor. I believe it is peace in our time." Oh my, how was he wrong? So, the results of the Munich Conference. France and Britain basically gave in. The Czechs were forced to evacuate the Sudetenland. Germany gained 3 million people, impressive military gains, and a bunch of Czechoslovakia's natural resources and industry because that's where most of their factories were. Now, France and Great Britain used a policy of appeasement to contain Hitler's aggressive expansion. They granted him concessions. They wanted to avoid war, and the Allies desperately wanted to avoid another war like World War I. An intervention against Germany would have likely resulted in a war. Now, let's talk about this image real quick. You may recognize the general art style before, and if you look really closely, that's right, folks. This was drawn by Dr. Seuss as a way to depict appeasement. As you can see, all of these sea monsters are Nazis based on the swastikas, and this gentleman says the appeaser, and he's giving out lollipops, essentially to get them to stop and just leave everybody else alone. The policy of appeasement looked good on paper, but essentially it gave Hitler everything he wanted. So was it successful? No, not at all. It encouraged Hitler's war effort and led him to believe that France and Great Britain would not intervene. Hitler gained confidence in each concession made by the Allies, and they gained a significant military advantage, land, people, and resources, to the point that others were starting to realize, there's going to be another war soon. One of them being Winston Churchill, who went on to say, "I will begin by saying what everybody would like to ignore or forget, but which must nevertheless be stated, namely that we have sustained a total and unmitigated defeat. Britain and France had to choose between war and dishonor. They chose dishonor. they will have war. That's where we're going to end for today. Your assignment is the textbook activity, which I should have probably already given you before we did the notes. So see you all next time. Bye, everyone.